welcome, good evening, and welcome to the Wednesday, August 21st work session of the Penfield Town Board. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And will the clerk please call the roll, please?
Barry.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Leenhouts.
Here.
Ockenden.
Here.
Teglash. Here. All here.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the community for the outpouring of support. With the loss of my dad, just want to thank everybody. Got a lot of great feedback or input from the community and friends, and just want to say thank you. So that we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? No? Motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Vote, please.
Barry.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Leenhouts.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
Teglash.
Aye.
All aye.
Okay. And we have guests this evening. This evening we have Peter Vars and some guests here to update us on Willow Pond, the plan development. Please step forward. Anything I'm missing, Carrie?
Nope, I was going to give a quick overview.
Oh,
if you want me
please,
to give
yes.
a
No,
little
yeah, jump
warm
in.
intro.
Thank you. No. I need all the help I can get.
So the owners of the property are here as a guest to give a courtesy overview of their sketch plan application to the planning board. The sketch plan was a proposed change in the approved development plan that's been on file with the town for a number of years. In this district, which is the planned development district, when there's an approved plan and then there's a requested change to that approved plan, they need to come to the planning board first to navigate the site plan elements and the changes in the overall design of the project, but in the future, as the project proceeds, town board would be needing to review the application to issue a special use permit or special permit for the change for the planned development district. So we thought it'd be a good idea to give a preliminary overview of the concept, and so here they are. And I think without further ado, I'll pass it over to the applicants.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Carrie. My name is Peter Vars with BME Associates, appearing before you this evening on behalf of Willow Pond Ventures. And representing Willow Pond Ventures to my right is Chris Nadler, General Counsel, and Chris DiMarzo, the President and owner of Willow Pond Ventures. So as Carrie mentioned, what we're here this evening for you is to really just give you a brief overview of the applicant's intent for the development of really what is the last parcel of the Willow Pond Plan Development District. The applicant, Willow Pond Ventures, has owned this property for over 40 years and obtained their initial approvals for the Plan Development District back in the 1980s. And over the years has developed this area with a mix of single-family, multi-residential, and senior housing and office space. In 2002, the applicant received final site plan approval under the PD zoning for the property of the final 7 acres of the planned development district, which is represented on the plan that's on the screen before you. This 7 acres was approved to be developed with a 2-story office building on 2.4 acres, which is on the right side of that drawing, and the remaining 4.5 acres was approved for a 150-bed, 45,700 square foot, 2-story assisted living facility. The office building was subsequently constructed. It's there today. I think you are probably all familiar with the 2 office buildings that are there along Willow Pond Way and along 441. However, at the time, the applicant deferred the construction of the 150-unit multi-residential facility. Fast forward now to 2024, they now wish to proceed with the development of this 4.5-acre parcel as a multi-residential use. And in lieu of the 150-unit bed facility, they are proposing 84 market-rate apartments, rental apartments, to be housed in 2 3-story buildings on the 4.5-acre parcel. So the use of the property will remain as a multifamily, multi-residential project, and thus it's consistent with the Willow Pond Plan Development District per its previous approvals. The proposal does represent a reduction in building lot coverage from the previously approved site plan, a reduction of 20% or about 10,000 square feet in building footprint, square footage, a reduction in the number of units from 150 to 84, as we've mentioned. It also, by the layout that we've prepared in bringing the buildings into the center of the property, we're able to increase the setbacks from these buildings to the residential properties to the west and to the south, which would be to the left and to the bottom on the drawing in front of you. These setbacks increase to the west from 48 feet on the previously approved plan to 80 feet with this plan, and to the south, we're increasing it from 50 feet to 55 feet. These increased setbacks also provide us ample room for buffers, landscape buffers, and fencing to be provided along those common property lines with the existing residential properties. The proposal remains consistent with Chapter 250-5.4, the Plan Development District Zoning Code. The multi-residential use is a permitted use within the PD. The PD itself, the intent of the PD is to provide flexibility in land use and allows incorporation of a variety of residential types, which this project does meet that criteria. The project site itself, the actual 4.5 acres, is also appropriate for the proposed use. First of all, it is within the approved Plan Development District zoning for the property, the overall Willow Pond area. It is approved for multifamily residential use. It's not a designated open space parcel or identified open space parcel in any means. This parcel was identified with the original PD to be a multi-residential use parcel. The project's also supported by the 2023 Town of Penfield Comprehensive Plan, which states one of the goals is that locating higher density residential development in areas served by appropriate infrastructure. This parcel, because it is part of the PD of Willow Pond, is served by public water, public sewer, an overall stormwater management system that's been constructed with Willow Pond, and an existing transportation network. It is served by adequate infrastructure. Currently, where we are in the process is this is the sketch plan. It is before the planning board. We appeared before the planning board back in July for a public meeting on the sketch plan application, and the planning board is in the midst of doing their diligence and reviewing the sketch plan and providing a sketch plan memo. Then, as outlined within the PD ordinance, our next step would be is to prepare preliminary site plans and submit those to the planning board for site plan review, which would also include the seeker review. And then, as Carrie laid out, if successfully completing that step, we would be back before this board for the special permit for modification of the original approved PD. A couple last things just to point out. The applicants, Chris and Chris, have already met with the Willow Pond neighbors to obtain feedback on them, they've identified concerns about some rear yard drainage issues, about what their thoughts are about buffering and landscaping. So those are all things we'll start incorporating within the preliminary site plan design. And I think more importantly, just as we're at the first step with sketch plan review with the planning board, we're probably at the first step with, consulting or engaging the neighbors. So when it comes time for the site plan application, we will address the buffers to the neighbors. We'll address stormwater management. We will submit a traffic study for the project. We'll look at pedestrian connections from this property into to the existing sidewalk network. Building architecture will be submitted for review by the planning board. We'll address seeker with the planning board and everything that's under that umbrella. And we have our PRC comments already, and we'll get the sketch plan review letter, and we'll be addressing those. So that's really what we wanted to do for your information tonight, was just give you an idea of what the applicant's intent was and how we believe it fits within the PD. And what we ultimately will be looking to do is hopefully be able to obtain the special permit for this modification of the previously approved plan. So with that, I know it's a work session, but Chris or myself could answer any initial questions you may have at this time.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions of the board?
I have
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I've got several. Okay. So you're going now with 3 stories, though, and in a planned development, typically we're looking at 2 stories only. So why that does not fit anything within Penfield, within that drive? Why is it necessary to go to 3 stories from 2 stories? In addition, the buffer that you have here, there is supposed to be open space for residents there, and all the open space, you indicate on your plan that it's 40 acres, or 40% of open space, but all that open space simply looks like buffers. It doesn't look like it's a resident would use that space or would do anything with that space. And then I'm also curious, within the traffic study, will it address the fact that there's really one way in, that there's one light into those properties, and the fact that that's going to increase the traffic coming in and using that one way in?
Okay, I'll give you a brief answers to all of those, because all of those are definitely issues that would and need to be vetted through the site plan review process with the planning board. But I can tell you what our intent is, and I'll start at the end and work backwards. It did come up through sketch plan review already and in the PRC review about making a secondary connection up at the northeast corner to tie into the office park parking lot up there, and we have looked at that, and that is
like
feasible.
A cut through?
Yes, right where the cursor is moving. We will be able to facilitate that connection so that there is at least in a second means in. The office park is owned by the applicant, so the necessary cross-access easements can be secured. The traffic study will look at trip generations, how much traffic is generated by the project, its distribution onto the surrounding highway network. And when we say highway network, that would be including distribution onto Willow Pond Way, onto Sanders Farm, and out to 441, and even through Crown Point and out to 250. So that would be a study that would be prepared per a scope that would be established through the town engineer's office and probably New York State DOT also, since they are the governing agency with Route 441. With regards to the buffers, ironically, that's one of the things we have been talking with the applicant about recently is twofold. One is we want to try to maximize our buffers to the west and the south because of the existing residential properties there, to be sure we have ample room for landscaping or fencing, so it's not pinched there. But we have looked at in the fact that we do have, for lack of a better way to put it, room in the center, that they are looking at residential amenities for the residences in that regard. Finally, with regards to building height, yes, these proposed buildings are proposed at 40 feet tall. So we understand, the code allows a maximum height of 35 feet. So that would be something we would be reviewing with the planning board for a recommendation ultimately to come back to this board. We would provide information, first of all, the context of that height as it relates to the surroundings, which is obviously very important. But also more importantly, too, there is the component of also of the 5 feet differential. How is that in comparison versus going out with larger footprints, compressing the buildings down and spreading them out? What does that look like? And that's sometimes it is analysis we can prepare so that you have that balancing act that of comparing height to footprint, so to speak. But we understand, we know that that is something that has to be addressed. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And when you say those apartments are market rate, you've seen a demand for market rate apartments with the new arbors going up at 250 in Atlantic. And we might not address it now, but
sure,
that is a concern I would have too, is that this market, how do we know it's not saturation? We have so many apartments going in, those arbors are going to be quite large.
We're confident that the market is still going to exist based on our research as well as the town's comprehensive plan and desire for more housing. Our current apartment complex in Willow Pond has a 280-person waiting list. for market rate apartments.
And what is market rate today? What are we looking at for a one-bedroom, two-bedroom?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head what these would be. Okay, go ahead.
You just need a microphone.
Chris Tomarzo, thanks. Good questions, very good questions. Market rate depends on the type and quality of the housing. The housing that we have within Willow Pond, the Willow Pond apartments, are probably averaging $1.50 a square foot, and that's, apartments that have been,
That are
40 years
older.
old, but a great market for it. This development we see is a little higher end than that, higher end finishes, a little larger, balconies, very, very nice. And we see these as going to market at over $2.10 a square foot. So a 1,000 square foot unit will be $2,100 in that range.
And that square footage includes two bedrooms, one bedroom?
There'll be ones, twos, and I think there's very few three bedrooms.
Okay, but for that 1,000 square footage?
A typical 1,000 square foot is a large one bedroom.
Okay. So we're looking for single people would move in there.
Well, our market that we see all over Monroe County and in this area is really threefold. Young working people, what we call families in transition, divorced people, and seniors. So it will be a wide range of people that will fit this demographic. Yeah, there is a need. And I know that you have a lot of housing coming, but, it's very location specific. I think the housing that's being built is a little different corner. This corner is a little different. Great access to shopping and, the whole community, obviously access to main roads and stuff. But
And you mentioned, just as you were finishing up, that your ongoing will include talking to the neighbors. You said you've done that, but did I understand that correctly? That says you will be addressing our concerns as well? Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, based on the initial feedback we've gotten, they've, we summarized what their issues were. They had, like I said, the rear yard drainage, the buffering. We'll come up with the buffering plan.
When you say you've spoken to the neighbors, then in their end of property and the water issues, so you've spoken to the people only that back up there?
Yeah,
or?
I want to be.
Yeah.
Another very good question. And I think from the last meeting, we got a number of the people's names that live directly adjacent to our property. We invited them to our clubhouse at Willow Pond. We had a nice meeting. They have some very good concerns, and that I would have the same concerns. I think what we understand, the majority of their issues currently are people going fast on Willow Pond Way. And if you can see that little curve in Willow Pond Way, it causes a kind of a blind spot, which is really the majority of their issues currently. The discussion that we had is, the proximity to our new buildings. They did say that they have water in their backyard because right now it's unfiltered. All the water from that hill goes right into their backyards. Peter Vars and his team are already solving that to alleviate some of their issues. We discussed adding some sidewalks, which we're willing to do. They asked us to build a new Willow Pond sign in the front because it's from 1978, which we're willing to do. We want to do that.
Right. But they didn't have concerns with the height of the building, with the 3 stories?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is also still going through the planning board
Right.
process, so.
No
I'm
question.
getting a lot of
Yeah.
questions, right? I get a lot of questions. I'm stopped in Wegmans. I'm stopped going into the library. So I want to be intelligent to be able to answer these
No
questions.
question. They have concerns over the height of the building. They
Okay.
don't want to see the building, and so we're willing to make a large buffer there, put a fence and landscaping to mitigate some of those things. But yeah, those are the basic things we talked about.
All right.
Any other questions?
Took a lot of my questions, Linda.
Think a lot. Think alike a lot.
I think at least for where we are in the phase, and you started with the lay of the land and kind of where we are in the sketch process, and a lot of the prelim work is going to be vetted through the planning board. So I did hear Chris, and Chris, you talked with a lot of the residents, and so thank you for clarifying that it was just the immediate neighbors butting up against the property line. But to date, and again, from the public, wanting to educate them where this application is in the process and what the jurisdiction of the town board is in terms of the modification to what was previously approved. But a lot of the concerns are going to be vetted through the planning board. Have you talked with any other Willow Pond residents who do not only butt up against the property line?
No, we haven't had any meetings with them. We did have the opportunity to hear from them at the planning board sketch plan review meeting last month. I think it was 40 or 50 people were there. And it was an interesting, people were very concerned, and I think there's valid concern with the traffic speeding around Willow Pond Way on the opposite side from our proposed development. And one of the things that our traffic report and something we can work with the town and the planning board on is some traffic mitigation measures that might alleviate that problem for the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay, so I think to date, probably the board has received, I would say in the ballpark of 40, 45 individual outreach. That doesn't count the petitions, I believe, that were circulated, which we don't yet have possession of, but we're aware that there's some conflict, concern brewing. And so I think, I understand you've laid out the parts of the comprehensive plan and the PD, which we understand, but the change is from largely for residents that would have stayed on premise versus adding additional vehicular traffic to that area. And so, again, understanding that it still falls in within PD, but that's at least what the board will consider when it gets to the point of you seeking that. I understand all the concerns you're going to be addressing. So I don't want to go into that tonight because a lot of this is going to be fluid. Your conversations are happening, and it's very prelim. You're going to be undertaking funds, spending time and money and resources to vet those concerns. But I'm just letting you know the temperature of
That's what we're here for, too. So that's great.
So we're going to want to see those concerns fully addressed, and then working with our engineering department on the traffic study, and not just an extrapolated traffic study, but something that's very tailored to the community, that community, and to not just Willow Pond community, but the wider Penfield community, because Route 441 is highly traveled. And so we're going to want to ensure the residents of everybody traveling that roads.
Right. So a couple things. What our standard practice is, what we will do is we will file a FOIL request with the clerk's office or through planning, so we can get all of those comments. And then we go through them, we categorize them, whether it's traffic, building height, buffers, whatever. So that, as you say, like your term, get the temperature of what are the issues. And that gives us a roadmap of making sure what are the key points that we address with the preliminary site plan application. And then the good part about the preliminary site plan application is two things. One is there is public hearings conducted by the planning board. So there's that opportunity for engagement with the public, and as you said, any of the public. Right? But then the other part is, which is really kind of like the safety net, is the seeker process, the state environmental quality review process, which, as I mentioned, is the umbrella that where we have to look at all of those issues to a degree that's determined by the planning board and staff and all, that they decide whether we've addressed them to the degree necessary. We don't get to pick the degree.
And that's highly regulated. You do this day in, day out, but for the folks that are behind you, seeker is like playing hide and seek, don't know, right? Like these are highly regulated questions. They're forms developed by every level of the state agency that has a vested interest in it, and the town town board, town staff, we are not able to deviate from these criteria. So I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you for coming. It is a very prelim process in seeking the change to what was approved. It's going to be handled per processes by the board and town staff, following a very strict delineated criteria, and we'll go through step by step, trusting you three and the clients you represent, right, to go through this very methodically.
Yes.
And we'll, of course, share all those concerns. We want this to be a very collaborative process. I know that the Willow Pond hearing got kicked out to end next week. I don't even remember now. Next week in August. When did AJ say? I don't remember, Pete.
Willow Pond is tomorrow.
It's on tomorrow's planning board workshop.
I don't even know what day today is.
Yes. So,
But
yes.
we've got a lot of development going
Yes.
on right now in Penfield. We want this to be a collaborative process between the potential developers, the town, and our residents. We're not trying to be divisive at all. So
Right.
we just want it to be very thoroughly done, carefully done, and thoughtfully executed.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else, or are we all
Can
set?
I ask a question? I mean, maybe a question for staff. My understanding is that the existing approval is a fully final approval that if they wanted to, they could go pull a building permit and start building it today?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they came in with all three buildings, or at least the one office building at the same time. They started construction, built the other building at the same approval, so their site plan approval is still standing today. So if
There's no
they want to go,
application.
So they
it
can
wouldn't
have
have to. It wouldn't have to go back to the planning board. They could go upstairs, pull a building permit for the assisted living facility, and begin construction on that.
And when was that approved? When was that approved?
2003.
1980?
No,
Yeah.
2003.
2003.
Okay, okay.
So yes, that is a correct statement.
I point that out only because I've seen some of the petitions where they want it to be open space, you know.
And it was never over open space in any of the approved plans previously.
Yeah, I appreciate all the comments, and Candace said it, there's a process we have to go through, which we're going through.
For the town board's
Yeah.
benefit also, I want to share that 25 Willow Pond Way, this parcel that I'm sort of circling down here, is a series of trails and open space area, and this is dedicated open space as part of that approved plan and can never be developed. So this is sort of like a trail network that neighbors can walk, and I can only say that because I utilize it. I live in the area. And so this is dedicated open space shared for all of the Willow Pond development.
As is to the south, I think, around the actual Willow Pond, there's more open space.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's, you can walk and you can walk. There's sort of informal, these are not formalized trails, but people will walk back here, and there's multiple places to sort of get here without trespassing on people's property. That's an important thing to remind folks.
And so all of that open space is kind of taken into account for the entire development?
I think at the time when it was originally approved by the planning board and the town board, that would have been the overall look of the thing. So it's important, I think we're looking at this one site, so.
All right, so on that plan then, when you say it was 40%, you're talking about the entire?
No.
Oh, no.
Oh,
No, that was just the 4.5 acre
All right,
parcel.
just want to make sure.
Yep, no.
So you're right first.
Okay.
Yes.
You were, yes.
All right, anything else? Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Thank you for your time,
Appreciate
and
it.
thanks for your comments. Appreciate it.
You know, these lawyers, they get, all you speak
We're
is
the
in
worst.
acronyms.
Yes.
Nobody understands anything you're saying.
That's right. That's what
We call it
engineers do.
alphabet soup.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night. So we have one new business item.
Questions or thoughts about what we should be doing, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
We'll let everybody get out of here that doesn't want to hang out,
Have a good night. Yep.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Get my pen.
All right, so we have a new business item we want to move up to allow the people that are here regarding it to.
Yeah, I was going
right?
to say,
Yeah.
if the town board's amenable, there's one application that was added as new business. I would have them come in as number 3 on the list, if that's okay. So first on the agenda is 1807. Do you
Yeah.
mind- I'm sorry, I'm taking it away from you. I
No,
apologize.
roll with it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Our first application is 1807 Penfield Road. This is for a conditional use permit to occupy tenant space that's in that freestanding building at the back of the property. And I'm sorry, I'll take this one down. The application materials were provided to the town board. It is for a spa operation. The cosmetology license was provided as part of the application. I believe I put that in the folder as well. This is because the tenant space hasn't been occupied for some time, this isn't a clear case of it could be done administratively. Under the new regulations, town board has to determine the path forward. I believe with the last tenant, proposed tenant, I can't remember. I think a public hearing, no, I think it was paused while more information was being gathered. So the proposed business is looking to operate a spa that would offer a blend of hydrotherapy, foot reflexology, and aromatherapy. And then the hours of operation, I'll just note, were daily from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. It would be by appointment, and they're anticipating approximately 5 clients per day. And I will pull up some photos for everybody to be reminded of the location. And forgive me for not getting that up fast enough. And the applicant is here, so I would certainly be remiss if I didn't invite them to come up and join the conversation.
Absolutely. How you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Anything else to add, Carrie?
No, I apologize. No, at this point, I would say if the town board members had questions about the proposed business.
Any questions?
How many employees would you have?
Oh, it's basically only my mom, like the applicants. She only works there. And basically we decided to, like, for our business hours, like from 9 to 9, because we want to give the client for a wide range of the time for coming. Yeah. Other than that, it's just, she can do, her own stuff.
Is that 7 days a week?
Yes.
But it's as she mentioned, it's an appointment-based business with clientele where they service maybe 5 customers a day, providing services under their cosmetology license, just looking to utilize that space. So it's not like it's a large spa where, we have multiple employees and, multiple customers coming in each day.
We are just talking the back building, right? That's Carrie, that's the one you've
Yes,
got
it's
up
that
on your-
rear red building that's shown in the photo here on the screen. It's my understanding, based on the letter of intent and previous communication with the owner of the property that owns the business in the front building, that there's 4 spaces that would be included as part of the lease to this, the lease for this back building.
Yeah, and I'm representing the owners of the entire parcel there. They specifically wanted someone that was going to come in and just use the space as is. They're not looking to make any significant changes or structural changes to the space. It's just been sitting there for 8 months now because they moved into the front building. So they're just looking for a tenant to come in there and occupy the space as is.
Do you currently have a location nearby, or is this brand new?
Yes, we currently have a business in the city of Rochester, but we're going to sell that business because my mom's health condition. She just, broke her ankle and still like in recovery, so she's just looking for a smaller space for like really small business.
So you'll have one location?
Yes, but we're going to sell it.
So I'm sorry, you're selling the business or selling the location?
No, we'll sell the business in that location.
I see.
Yeah.
And it's just, so the application's for just independent cosmetologists to just do their services at the building.
Gotcha.
So just trying to clarify, I read through the application material. So it's Ms. Young, that's the applicant, and the one that's going to be operating the business, correct? So I'm sorry. Hold on. Correct?
So she does not understand English very well.
Okay.
So basically, I help her to run the business, but she is the only person to operate.
To do the
So
services.
Yeah.
how are, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to recall, you represented the Andrea before, or was it, what's the
Yeah,
name
there's
of
been,
the LLC?
there's been 2 applicants.
And the prior one withdrew, if I'm remembering. It's the
Correct.
mother and son couple for another spa, was that right?
The first one for a hair. Then there was
Hair.
another
Yeah.
Yep. I
applicant who came in.
Okay.
Yeah, the
so-
barber salon was approved through administrative review, and they backed out last minute.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to
Yep.
remember the context. Okay, so, and your name for the record, please?
Olivia.
Olivia. So I understand you're helping to translate or communicate on behalf of your mom?
Yes.
So who is going to be operating the business in English?
Basically me.
So you'll be on site 9 to 9?
No, but just like, not like sometimes, or just because it's not, we already have existed clients, so
Okay.
basically we just like send text messages or,
Okay.
email to the clients to let them know that we change location.
Okay.
And then, because we already run the business in this industry for a long time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And what about walk-ins?
We don't
Appointment-based.
accept walk-ins.
Okay, so, and is there going to be clear signage or things like that on the door? I'm just trying to ask,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah,
big,
no,
you know.
absolutely.
If folks walk in, right, and it looks like on appearance that it's open for business, and is there going to be signage that kind of directs them to speak with you, or is this referrals only, or is the door not going to be open to passerbys? Like, how is this going to?
Yeah, first of all, we call like Ruby Spa because the color of the house, the building is red. So that's why I call Ruby. Is for the clients to, really easy for them to recognize the house or the business. So for the signage, we probably don't need that, really large or big signage to, make direction to the clients.
Yeah, they're probably not going to advertise on the main road there. They'll just have signage on the building itself to indicate.
What's the name of the business in the city currently?
It's Aroma Cove Spa.
And where is it located?
It's 1460 Lyle Avenue.
Okay.
All right.
When did you hope to make the move? What was your target?
The lease is contingent upon the approval here, but the lease is set to start on September 1st with giving a 7-day grace period to allow them to start getting moved in. So,
God bless you.
Thank you.
If the town board wanted to move forward with a pub, God bless you. If depending on the direction, there'd be time to provide notice to meet the notice requirements for the September legislative meeting if you wanted to schedule a public hearing for the project. And so if that's the direction, there is time for notice for the September legislative meeting to schedule a public hearing if that's the direction the town board wants to move, or if, however, if you want to move administratively, can let us know that as well.
Yeah, personally, I don't see a public hearing being needed, but I'll let the town board weigh in as well.
I would actually like to consider this, having one, because we're talking about a property in Penfield that will not be open to the public. And I think a sense of awareness. How do the rest of you feel that? We don't typically have a business that comes in and says, no, we're not going. We already have our clientele. There is no one else coming in. I know this building is somewhat in the back, but there's a concern there, not about your business not taking them, but that the public and the perception of not having a business that's open to new clients.
well, to clarify, it's open to new clients. It's just appointment-based. Walk-ins are just
Okay.
unwelcome.
Okay.
I
So
think
anyone can book an appointment, anyone that would like to. It's an appointment-based
But no
business.
signage, so do you rely on word of mouth then?
No, there will be signage
Just
on
not
the
on the
building
main road.
itself, just not on the main road.
Okay.
And certainly can put signage on the main road if that's a requirement.
No, not necessarily.
But it sounds like there is some existing clients that are enough to sustain the business already. Is that what I heard?
Correct.
Yeah. And what does everybody else think in terms of?
Olivia, you mentioned because of your mom's health concerns, and I'm not asking personal health questions at all, but I see the existing offerings at Aroma Cove. Is any of that going to be like limited or decreased in scope so that your mom is able to provide those services?
My mom has like one employee there.
Oh, there isn't. Okay.
Yeah. So, but
Okay,
it's
so
just like she does not have like enough energy to run that business there with one employee. So she just want to.
Is that employee coming with?
No.
Okay.
Basically, the employee will buy that business there because that business grows really better, well.
So then I guess my question is still, your mom is going to be the only staff at Ruby Spa?
Yeah. Yes.
So are the current offerings from Aroma going to be offered the same at Ruby Spa?
No, not the same.
So what's going to be offered at Ruby Spa or is not at Aroma?
The hydrotherapy.
Okay, I see. Sorry, that was in the application.
And we did about 6 months ago have that barber business, appointment-based, get approved administratively as well. So I know it's not the exact same services, but the concept is the same, where it's an individual licensed person just trying to occupy the space.
Just so you know, there's been actually a code update since that initial application at the beginning of the year. So the process by which of like administrative approval, that's a little bit different now. And so that's why there's a change in practice, potential change in the experience from that application to now. The new local law just took effect literally maybe 4 days ago. So there's a little bit of a change in the process or the procedure.
Okay.
Can you tell me, Carrie, for the signage law for the building, what is going to be required to at least display at least to the public that drives by that there is a new spa in this location?
I mean, typically there'd be some type of a building-mounted sign to identify it. I'd have to check with the fire marshal's office to see if there's anything that they require. Just in terms of, there might be placards that at the very least needed to indicate what the building occupancy type is, so they know what's inside, if it's residential versus business type. I believe there is a freestanding sign out at the front. I don't know if all of the spaces of the freestanding sign are taken or if there's a slot available to put in for whatever business is occupying that rear building. I thought there was room.
There is, and the owners have approved that as well.
Okay.
They just want to make sure that they have say, obviously it has to be within the requirements of the town, but they just want to make sure they have say in the size and all of that.
Sure.
But they did give the go-ahead to incorporate that.
Yeah, the owner of so certainly the building department wouldn't issue a sign permit unless the permission of the owner of the property was granted.
Of course, yep.
And typically, town board will take a look at signage and decide whether or not they have to be reviewed at a meeting or if they're okay to proceed if it's no material change in design.
Yep.
But town board is usually included in the review of signage as well.
Yep.
Bob, Kevin, would you be amenable to allowing the conditional use permit contingent also on appropriate signage to indicate at least to the public that a spa is moving in?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
I do too.
Okay.
Agreed.
Then you need a motion from us, correct?
If you're wanting to authorize administratively,
Yep.
yes.
So I'll go ahead and I'm sorry, is that going to be acceptable to you, Olivia?
For
So thank you for explaining the additional services and limitations, and that it's going. Our concern was that usually we have a public hearing to just so that folks will know that a new business is coming in, the nature of the business, any change to the area, and then let's just say if there was any concern by the public because whatever, there's like 3 spas in the same location or something like. As an example, right? But in order to do it administratively, we can allow the Director of Community Development to to go ahead and handle that application with you, but by bypassing the hearing and doing it administratively, we're going to put a contingency in the application that will require you to post signage.
Okay.
So that folks know, hey, there's a new business in town, so that because it's appointment only, and if walkers, or anybody passes by and they try to go in and they're going to be turned away, we don't want any residents to be concerned and then complaints to the town or inquiries like this, because it's a legitimate business. You've gotten approval from the town. So we'd be asking you to take on the responsibility to have a sign designed, have it meet with code, pay for the sign, work with the building owner, get it approved by the building department. Okay. Any questions before we go ahead and?
So I didn't hear what the discussion was, Linda. She was considering a public hearing, and you're saying you're good with it with the condition of the signage?
Correct. My
Got it.
concern without any signage,
Okay.
that we needed to do something, but I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I concur.
Yeah.
So because they want to start by September 1, we'll go ahead and make the approval, and then you'll work with Ms. Carey again and the building department. We can put in some grace period to get a sign up, but if we hear, let's say in 30 days, there's no sign up without a good reason, we'll call you back.
Okay.
You're comfortable with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to allow Carrie Ivers to proceed administratively in granting a conditional use permit on this application with the contingency by the board of appropriate signage to indicate a new business, please.
I'll second that.
Okay, vote please, Sue.
Barry.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Leenhouts.
Aye.
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 Okay, Carrie, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for being here.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1350 Empire, I believe, Carrie.
Yes. This next application is for proposed new use of existing space. It was a former kayak business, Oak Orchard, I believe was the name of it, 1350 Empire Boulevard. In this district, there is no provision or administrative approval process, and because it's a change in use, a public hearing does need to be called. There's no administrative sort of
Option.
relief valve here. And so and the applicant, I believe I indicated that there's no need for them to be here tonight, because I'm just going to be asking that a public hearing be set for the September meeting date. We do have enough time to provide legal notice and have the public hearing set for the September legislative meeting. And so I'm happy to share some details. This is going to be to do a...
I was going to say, Carrie, if you could just, hit the highlights of it, even though we'll have a hearing.
So it's looking at doing, apologies, I'm trying to bring up renderings for you. The application is using that space. There'd be interior remodeling to create a coffee house. The applicant has provided some general floor plan to show how the space would be laid out. They'd be working through the building department. There's no exterior renovations or changes being proposed at this time. As part of their application, they've indicated that they would have, it'd be a coffee house. They would have some light bakery goods. Nothing would be produced or baked or cooked on site. They do have, they're showing sort of some interior renovations. I'm so sorry, this is not flipped very nicely.
It's okay.
I can
And you've
turn my
seen it,
head.
okay. So the folks at home have to just turn their heads to see it when they're looking at the television. They indicated that they would be doing some interior acoustic performances. I'll indicate that it's going to be Elvio's coffee house, and Elvio is a local musical talent, if I'm going to say that. He's been on, I think, on TV, if I'm not mistaken, in the past.
Is he not a member of Daughtry?
Yes.
Yeah, he also was a Realtor and sold me my first house.
Oh, well, hopefully that doesn't come back. No, I mean, hopefully it was a good experience. So there also is an outbuilding on the property, like a shed-like structure, and they talked about in the future having ice cream or something else out of that little building. And so the public hearing, the applicant would be here to make a presentation to sort of walk you through the details of the application, and then anyone else could obviously address the application. I did submit this for 239M review through Monroe County Planning and Development so that the various agencies will see that there's a new use being proposed to the site. So if there's any issues or concerns from any other agencies, they would certainly let us know that and provide that feedback to us.
So the action item is just the public hearing.
Just to let me advertise for a public hearing.
Right. Just curiosity, was there any issue, anything that needs to happen with parking?
No, they indicated that there's 25 spaces available on site, and so that exceeds the requirement based on the square footage for our parking standards.
Okay, thanks.
Well, this will also require a consistency review and everything.
They'll submit a waterfront consistency review, and we'll review that. This actually might qualify under the minor activities because it's a change in use, but we'll confirm that. We will definitely check that box.
Okay. I need a motion to move this along, or do we?
I think maybe. I don't know if we need a motion to have me set a public hearing, as long as you're all nodding and saying I can set the public hearing.
Everybody good with that? All right.
Sure.
Okay. We'll move right on to 1780 Penfield Road.
Yes, for the record, I think it's 1790 Penfield Road. This is, and I'll invite the applicant is here. This is the proposed, the new business owner. 1790 has a tenant space that was formerly occupied by the Edward Jones office. That Edward Jones office has since relocated. So this is proposing a retail shop. It's a consignment store. And then the applicant can answer any questions. The application materials I forwarded do have hours of operation and other details.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Anybody have questions?
So the photos that you attached of already merchandise displayed, is that at a current or elsewhere, location
correct.
elsewhere?
That is at my current location.
And where is your current location?
It is 7393, sorry, I'm blinking out here, Route 96.
Victor?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. So those are just pictures of my aesthetic, basically, and how that current store is set up. So I would look to duplicate that, if you will, within the building itself.
And this is an addition to, so you'll have two of the stores, or are you
No,
moving?
I am closing the Victor location to move to the Penfield location. Right.
They've already got Play-Dohs there, Once Upon a Child. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So I thought the application materials was really helpful with the way that it was packaged already with the photos, and you can kind of already see that it was existing business moving.
Yes.
And the logo and everything with signage, I'm assuming it's already set. So everyone comfortable moving administratively tonight?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Yes.
So we know parking's a fine, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're okay. All right, then I'll go ahead and make any questions for you or any concerns?
No?
Well, then we'll make this quick. So I'll make a motion to approve administratively for the CUP, no contingencies.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Vote, Sue?
Mary?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Leenhouts?
Aye.
Ockenden?
Aye.
Teglash?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very
for
much.
packaging the application.
Thank you.
Have
I
a good
really
night.
appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Welcome to Penfield.
Looking forward
I'll
to
be
this.
in touch, Stacy.
Yes, appreciate it.
All right, next action item is reviewing and finalizing the town's submission for energy efficiency conservation block grant. And welcome, Sarah and Mark.
Hi, thank you. So we did share a letter with the board in their drop talking about one of the items that's necessary for us to submit an application for the energy efficiency conservation block grant. That grant application is due at the end of October this year. And specifically, there were 4 items to choose as part of our energy efficiency and conservation strategy, which is a required document for the application. So we're coming here looking for the board to give staff a little bit of direction in what their preference is for that strategy at this time. It does not, at this time, need to be a formalized goal. It can be, but it's not required to. So we just need direction in choosing one of those options from the board.
Can you give us some idea of what's feasible, right? Like, we don't want to pick a pie in the sky gold. Can you tell us what your recommendations are, what staffing, resources, and funding you have that can help support the goal? Because we don't want to set you up to fail.
Sure. So looking at the letter specifically, we ruled out one of the options of paying prevailing wages for all construction and maintenance projects by 2025 because we're already doing that. So just to be clear, that's why that's really one of the actions. It would have, but we're not allowed to take it. So looking at the other 4 options, right now the most accessible goal for the town with the actions that we're currently taking and currently planning on taking, option number 2, reduce energy use by 50% by 2050 or sooner, is the most accessible action. That would be backed up by having a climate action or climate adaptation plan, which we've already started moving forward with. And we've actually applied for a grant to help with that plan as well. We're also looking at upgrading LED lighting in the different buildings in town, which would help reduce our energy usage. We're also looking at upgrading our fleet. Realistically, most of our fleet is heavier duty equipment, so that is a less accessible goal at this time. But as we do slowly upgrade our fleet, that will help with our energy usage as well. Also, with the upgrades that are coming with the new building for the DPW, that will help to lessen or at least improve our energy efficiency and ideally lessen our energy use. So that is the most accessible option.
And it seems like to me that reducing energy use by 50% also encompasses everything else at the same time, is one way I look at it.
That's accurate.
What do you measure it from? 50% from, like, if you've already got the DPW building on
So
site?
that was actually my next item. So to have a starting point for that reduction, that would come as part of the climate action, climate adaptation plan when we do a greenhouse gas inventory. Part of those plans, we're looking at doing one municipally and one for the county or the whole town for the community. By doing one specifically for our municipal buildings, that will give us a better idea of where our starting point is and what that 50% ends up being.
And are there any milestones between that and 2050 that we have to meet, or that's it?
Ideally, those milestones would come out of a climate adaptation plan.
Okay.
Do they actually do any formal monitoring, or is it all on us once we have the direction?
So for this grant application, it's essentially what our strategy is. So part of that strategy that we put in the application is similar to what I just explained to you of the actions that we're currently pursuing. As part of the grant monitoring, they don't require updates on those actions. They require us to show what we've used the money for and ensure that it's matching our budget. So this grant opportunity, it's a block grant, so that money is already set aside to potentially go towards Penfield. That's the $76,310. They outline the different options that we can pursue with the grant, and that would be a reimbursement grant. So there's no matching, but we would essentially purchase or make upgrades, and then we would provide accurate receipts, and they would refund that money.
Okay.
Or reimburse that money.
Okay.
I mean, these are all great goals. I'm sure we're working on it in slices as we can, but for purposes of the grant, if that's the staff's recommendation, I mean, I defer to what's most achievable. Any other
Absolutely.
thoughts, concerns?
So
Okay.
This needs to be submitted in October, so it's
Yep.
what we're asking the
Yeah.
board.
Right.
Now, if we're ready to make a decision tonight, great. If not,
Right.
we're just trying to get ahead of it to give opportunity to get the grant written and submit, so it still needs to be approved, so it's not a guarantee, but obviously if the board's looking to move ahead on that, then that can get us moving on making that application.
And what we would look to for the board to essentially do to move us forward is at this meeting or another board meeting, verbalize your interest in us moving forward with that option in the strategy. Verbalize, yes.
No, got it.
So it doesn't have to be in written. It doesn't have to be in writing. It has
Document
to
it in the
be-
minutes that
yeah.
that's where the board wants to go. And
Yeah,
then
so
He's verbalizing.
I'm verbalizing.
So I'm saying we would need all of the members to.
Right.
So
yeah.
just-
So are you looking for something formal that can
Take a
be
vote and then-
documented and that you can share?
Take a formal vote on it.
Okay, right. So is the motion we want to make is to go with option 2, to reduce energy use by 50% by 2050 or sooner. And I support that. Can we make a motion to take a vote if everyone is in support of that? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll make the motion that we move forward with reduce energy use by 50% by 2050 or sooner, which is number 2 on our option list.
And I will second.
Okay, Sue, vote, please.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Nice work on that.
Thanks, Sarah. I should have mentioned Sarah's our sustainability engineer and Mark's our lead engineer with the town. Thank you both.
That's nice. That's good.
Okay,
Oh,
I thought I had to make space.
we're going to talk sidewalk plowing. Tim and Joe. So we had a petition for sidewalk plowing, and this is a follow-up discussion. Tim, take the lead, please.
So we did receive a petition for sidewalk plowing in the Willow Pond neighborhood around Devonshire.
And Courtshire.
And Courtshire. I apologize. Currently, per town policy, we do not, as far as the maintenance part of that policy, the town of Penfield does not and will not plow sidewalks within subdivisions and sections of sidewalks that are not completed or connected to any existing sidewalk network. That was an area that we did in the past, and then just it was becoming problematic, the way people were parking over the sidewalk. We looked at our policy and realized we weren't following our own policy. So a couple years ago, we decided to take that off the sidewalk route.
So I'm sorry, when you say the town wasn't following policy, the policy is originally that the town does not take the liability to plow roads and subdivisions. We were doing it.
For some reason, it was either not grandfathered in. It was before my time. It was that's just what we did.
So Joe, we were doing it then, even though we were not required to, either by laws, and it's not
That's correct.
a town-maintained road or something like this, and it was not required by town policy.
It's sidewalks.
Sidewalks.
The sidewalks.
No, that's okay.
Right, it's a town-maintained road, but the sidewalks, we were not responsible to plow them because it's inside of a subdivision, which, in according to town code, we do not plow sidewalks in subdivisions.
Okay, so go ahead.
Was this an exception, or were we plowing many subdivisions?
That was the only one.
That was the only one.
Okay.
That's part of, we provided the mapping tonight, so just as we're looking, if we add this back in, we're changing our policy, which then opens up a whole lot of subdivisions, which we've got to add personnel, and we've got to add plows, and, you know, it could potentially be a very large impact to the DPW on equipment needed and staffing to meet the rest of it. So that's why we prepared the map. It almost would double the amount of sidewalk that they would have to plow. So right today, we just do the main lines on the roads to keep those open. We don't do neighborhood sidewalks. We also don't require people to clear their own, you know, as the city does. But we just want to provide, if we do add this back in, that would be a change in our policy and potentially have.
Right, and there are no other neighborhoods or subdivisions that we currently do.
No,
It's
this
just
was
the
the
main
only piece, so we got rid of this a couple of years ago, and then just want to make the board aware, if you are looking at changing that policy, that there's a lot that would follow.
Do you know what that impact, I mean, roughly what that impact would be?
So it would be, we were talking about it for the last couple of weeks, as far as just looking at the map, it'd be an additional 3 sidewalk tractors with plows, V-plows, all set up to plow, with an additional 3 employees to run those. Because the sidewalk neighborhoods are just scattered all over town, and just to get to all those. Typically, with our sidewalk plows, say we get called in from dispatch at like 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody gets in at 4:30. It takes 3 hours to plow the sidewalk routes. If we were to add on some stuff right now, it would significantly add on time without adding more equipment. So to keep that 3-hour mark, which works out best for us, kids walking to school, people walking to work. There's a lot of walkers out there at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. We like to keep around that 3-hour mark for each route.
And is it accurate that we had been doing that for 35 years? As they state in the petition, do we know? Do we have those records?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Couldn't tell you.
But I believe we stopped, it's been several years since we've done it, so it wasn't just this past year, it was done
it was like
pre-COVID.
I believe it said 2022.
Mm-hmm. But it looks like the sidewalk policy, I see that was a unanimous vote by the supervisor and town board at the time, adopted in 2018. So I would like to ask Pete a couple questions. Pete, can you talk to us about the liability of taking on sidewalk plowing in conflict with a town policy, please?
Well, it could create a liability issue if if there was maybe you failed to plow it in time, ice build up, and then somebody slips and falls. I mean, there could be, I don't know if our code offhand has like a pre-notice type of provision for sidewalk, but it could create a liability concern if you undertake a duty and then you perform it negligently.
And to confirm, we do this for no other subdivisions?
Correct. No other subdivision.
So my position is, although we would, I'm sure everybody with any subdivision sidewalk, putting aside any potential HOAs that may take on that liability as part of the subdivision, with this being an existing policy since 2018, and the liabilities that we heard if the town took steps in contravention of policy. I do understand the confusion from the residents because the town had done it against the policy for some time, so it creates a reliance on that action. And then if it wasn't communicated oops, we shouldn't have been doing this, right? It does create a perception that the town had at some point assumed it. I do think that needs to be corrected, communicated very clearly if the board decides to act in one way or another. But I think in this case, I would err on uniformity throughout the town and enforcing our existing policy. So I appreciate the petition, but I would not be in favor of it.
Tim, just to clarify, I believe we did send letters prior to us stopping, so we can send a new letter saying it's not going to happen, but it was communicated ahead of us not plowing for that season that we weren't going to do it, so they were aware at that time.
So yes, let me clarify. Because we received a petition for all of the residents, I would like for all impacted residents that the petition was considered, but for the aforementioned reasons, we would not be. But that, again, that's only my position. What do others say?
No, I do feel bad for them because they had that service for so long and they came to expect it, and it's a really nice to have. But I agree that we should be uniform, and that if we were going to take it on again for them, that in fairness, we should take it on for everyone who's in a similar subdivision. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
And I would agree with that. And it doesn't sound like we're set up to handle it, even if we wanted to this year. It would take quite some time to get us to that point. So although it's a service I think would be nice to offer across the town, it doesn't sound like it's very feasible at the moment to consider it.
Okay.
All valid points.
think we all agree.
So maybe just something to consider in the future of future budget asks, because it's not even allocated for the 2025 budget. If the town were to move, it would have to be a very slow process of amending the policy, ensuring that budget and staff are allocated for the resources, and then we'd, of course, work with council to handle any liability issues. Okay, so the petition is acknowledged, but not going to be approved for any town action. Do you need anything from the board?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so either.
Okay.
Check with Peter. Is there some kind of a formal action the town board, or just need you acknowledge the?
Acknowledge it and decline to take action.
Okay.
Do you want a formal vote to that? Roll call vote to say that's...
Well, I mean, it's a no action. There's nothing wrong with taking a vote if you'd rather do a vote and confirm it, but you're not.
If it's going to be reflected in the minutes.
Yeah. We all agree? Raise your hand. I think we're good.
So if somebody wanted to do it, they could make a motion.
Yeah. Okay, with that said,
We're in agreement.
Okay. Move on to the next agenda item, which is temporary brush drop-off policy finalization. And Tim, you're up again.
Yeah, the fun stuff. Obviously,
It's all fun.
It's all fun. Everything's fun.
Yeah.
We are currently working on the section of Penfield Road / Gloria Drive, trying to get that ready for resident brush drop-off. We would like to, nail down the brush policy options, hopefully tonight. We came up with, obviously, we had these before, DPW requests. This is something that we kind of brainstormed in the DPW as far as what we've seen in the past with our workload, employees, what we think would be best for our maintenance moving forward. So I guess it's up to.
Yeah.
Didn't we already go through this?
I know we already looked through it, but we never hammered down on. We never picked specifically what was.
I think what we had discussed is going with an option and then being able to adjust it, but I don't believe we picked a specific option to start with, even if we're just staying with current practice. We just didn't say, okay, let's start.
To the fullest and then
monitor from there on out.
So, I'm honestly confused. So I know that we had to adjust things kind of in response to our partners in Brighton changing it on us.
Yes.
So
that was quick for the operation that we're having in the back parking lot right now. This is for moving forward at the Gloria Drive.
So yes.
Yep.
But I thought some of it was also trying to figure out. And just remind me if I'm wrong. I thought we were also going to try to track utilization data in the coming months or coming weeks, for some of the adjustments so that we can make a better informed decision.
Yep.
You're right, but we still have to, I think we have to say, what are we starting with?
Yeah, so then can I ask, Joe, what is the utilization data in the last week when we, on a dime, right, curtailed the operations? Did you see an uptick? Was Monday worse because Friday was less? And I think it was Monday through Thursday, is that right?
So honestly, since we started this, I believe it's been a week since we actually enacted this. We've had to turn away some contractors. The residents have been slow. We've been averaging about 15 residents a day, usually in cars, not a lot of trailers, that kind of thing. So 15 is manageable for the loads that we are taking to our partners in Brighton. So we've been right around that 5-truck load a day. So we've been matching that pretty regularly for the last week. Fridays worked out pretty okay. It was a rainy Friday, so there wasn't a lot of traffic anyways. And I've been trying to track the data as far as windstorms and stuff like that. There's obviously a little uptick whenever there's a windstorm. Rainy days, it's slow. But on average, it's been about 15 to 16 cars / single axle trailers a day. Yeah.
Okay. And I know.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No. And Bob, I think we had this conversation with Eric before of during COVID, Joe, I think we had, obviously with the less social interaction, not checking IDs, et cetera, but then that's now been instituted again?
Yes, we're checking out here in the parking lot. We were occasionally catching people down there. They were coming in with big trailers and stuff. We'd occasionally ask, make sure you were a town resident where the product was coming from. Now out here, we're checking them. Everybody that comes in, we're asking again.
Okay.
Which has helped, but everybody seems to be, for the vast majority, your town residents, or they're cutting for town residents.
Okay. And I know it's not possible to tell because people were just leaving their debris overnight, and I know you're not watching 24/7, but taking that into consideration, is that adding an additional town load to that 15-16?
So the ones that they've dropped off outside of hours, they haven't been massive loads. It's just been like either a car or like a little like an S10 or a Ranger size load. Nothing substantial.
One of the issues I know you're having with Brighton's help is just the difference between a big log and a small log. Mm-hmm. And at times you had to take out a chainsaw and spend the time to do that. But are we going to address that in your recommendation? Or I guess there's not a particular, you're not going to measure logs, I guess, but can you touch on that?
So, and again, that just comes down to there's the different variables. If there's a single axle trailer, usually you're not going to get anything bigger than like a 5-foot log. You're not going to have like a single axle trailer with like a 10-foot log attached to it. That's just not practical. So the stuff that it depends on whatever options are picked can dictate what kind of lumber/branches we receive.
Yeah.
Right. The vehicles are showing up when they got a dump truck or a 16-foot dump trailer. They're hauling large sections of trees in, which then we end up having to cut up before we can take them to Brighton. When you keep it down to where it's a single axle trailer, or people bring it in the back of their cars or their pickups, the material's smaller, stuff they can handle by hand. When they get into the dump trailers, they're loading them with equipment. They're not loading it by hand. It's most generally that's contractors. They may be working for a homeowner, local homeowner, or a lot of times we ask them, which is kind of a catch on us, they're town residents. They're doing work someplace, but you ask them for their ID, and they whip out their town resident. So they got us there. What do you do in that instance? And they're actually contracting for somebody. And whether they're actually cutting here in town or not, that's,
But they got a place. Got a place.
They've got a place.
Right.
They're a town resident.
Right.
I'll just make another comment, and then I'll open it up.
It's a loophole.
It's a loophole.
They catch you. You stand there and you say to them, and they, yes, this is where are you cutting? Well, then, a lot of times we go check that out. But again, they're a town resident. How do you turn a town resident away?
So is that why in your recommendation you're recommending no contractors?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
I was looking at, I could make a joke. No, a lot of people don't know where they are, Penfield, Webster, so I'm sure that plays into it a little bit. I mean, my recommendation is to go with your recommendation, but I want to reiterate, we obviously got a lot of feedback from residents. This is not set in stone. I think we talked about it. If we have to pivot, make changes, this town board will act. And so...
And that's probably one of my things that I'd want to try to, help out for the months of the year. One of our requests would be, open from March until October. That doesn't mean that we have to be completely closed from November to February. We could do pop-up dates. We can do like a pop-up week depending on, because normally what would happen is at the DPW site when we could take people in, if it's snowing out, everybody's out doing snow removal. We don't have somebody back there watching. At this new area space, there has to be somebody there all the time. So that would help with us with snow removal. But again, we can always do the pop-up dates, pop-up weekends. That's also an option.
Right, so you could do something like that if you had to address there was a storm.
Yes. Yep. That's the big thing. Like if we have a storm, we know it's coming. We could say, hey, we're going to be open up for a whole week, or the first Wednesday and the third Saturday. Whatever we want to do. There's options.
What time do the latest schools start in the morning? Does anybody know?
In that area, elementary, they would need to be in school by 9 o'clock. So I think that's why you went with a 9 o'clock. I don't think the private schools...
But your recommendation was 8 o'clock, correct?
Yeah, 8 o'clock, and we were just thinking of more or less of getting our employee out to the site.
I would prefer 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's a good idea. The one thing I was going to say regarding storms is if there was a big event, I don't foresee town residents all going to this site to drop their stuff off. We may have to use our parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of options. Just wanted to say it, that if there was a big event, it would be hard to send everybody there. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, can I clarify? When you say closed during plowing and snow season, that means closed from November through February? Correct. Okay, so
Yes.
it's not that if it starts snowing in October, you guys shut down?
Correct. It would be open.
Okay.
I mean, we just picked this arbitrarily just because of our snow season. Usually it's November 15th to April 15th, but the way the weather's been tracking.
Yeah, because that's if you have somebody come plow your driveway, that's when they put in
Correct.
November 15th.
Yep.
What do you mean by snow season? Is it for like DPW for
Yes.
November 15th? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how our dispatchers and stuff are set up. That's considered when we start our snow watch and when we finish it. And so that's how we classify our snow season. And we, like I said, we shorten that up though to, we know the weather's better as a general rule. We can start getting people are out taking care of their yards. We're out taking care of stuff. We should be able to be open in that.
Okay. So just for purposes of moving this along.
We can go line by line.
Yeah.
No. I would be comfortable with the DPW recommendation. I would note that I understand the balance that we're doing with safety with the children and buses and vehicular traffic in the morning as people are getting to work, fully understand that, and we're trying to balance, again, the concerns from residents that we heard. Totally understand that, but with these hours of operation, it precludes a lot of the persons working. So I would I'm again comfortable based on all of the conversations that have taken place, but would like to see then pop-up dates or certain times just outside of the core working hours. But I would say that for me, I'm okay with DPW recommendation, but to allow contractors to apply or pay for a permit to dispose of brush, I would not exclude that revenue opportunity.
And then changing to 9 o'clock. Is that what we?
That's the DPW recommendation. Everything in DPW. But
Gotcha.
The DPW recommended 8 o'clock, correct?
No, it's 9 o'clock, column E.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just updated it.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, I did.
I gotcha.
Lifetime updating.
Thanks, Mark. I
I was watching it.
thought it was me.
I go, look at
Sneaky.
Very sneaky.
Okay,
How does everyone feel?
good.
Do you want, so are you saying we should, or we want to talk further about the possible permit situation?
Do you agree, disagree? Are you okay with that a la carte option?
Yes, I think we would just need to figure out what is that amount. It would need to be something that wasn't going to be taken advantage of. So everybody in that area said, oh, wow, this is a great deal. I'm going to go take all my stuff there. So, and I don't know what that amount would be. We'd have to, you have to work out the logistics and.
Actually, it would require a resolution to amend the fee schedule.
Right.
So we could do a little cross-analysis of other communities that have that system in place and
So we could go forward with E and then leave the option to come back and discuss.
Okay.
At the organization meeting, you typically adopt the updated fee schedule, so that's a good time to potentially add that in for 2025.
Okay.
And generally adopt that at the end of this year, so known new fees or changes in fees are known for the next year.
So it would continue with no contractors until that happens, correct?
That's what that's how.
Yes.
Yep. And we'll accommodate the Penfield residents.
Yeah, like you said, some have learned a loophole.
Right, right.
And they catch you. You're standing there, and how do you answer that question?
We'll allow them, right?
Okay.
Thank you, that was good.
Bob? You okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You looked really...
I was trying to see the screen with mine.
Okay, so you at least have your direction there, but of course, at least for Gloria drop-off, I think the board had said if week 1, week 2, it's like a complete disaster, we would expect,
Right.
Joe, for you to
Yep.
come back and let us know.
We'd like to know that it's not working
Yes.
out, or we have to make a change, adjustments, or however we got to
Okay.
handle it to make it work.
Sure.
There's going to be, like everything, when you first start something, there's going to be growing pains there, but we'll sort through it. We always get through everything, and like I said, with your help, we can make sure we make it work.
And we can also work internally for some dates over the wintertime if we want to do weekends, like a Saturday like we have been doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember one of the big concerns of several residents wasn't so much during the hours of operation, but if a worker gets there in the morning and it's been left overnight, that's something we want to know too, is how often. Was that a one-time or is that happening?
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
All set?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much,
Yep,
yeah.
Thank you.
See you. Very helpful.
Pleasure seeing you all.
See you tomorrow.
All right. So next action item is ARPA funding. And I appreciate the board's work on this, but we need to get to a conclusion on what we're going to use the ARPA funds for. They need to be allocated by the end of the year. In addition, we received $431,712 from the county in funding for the youth and senior programming and related equipment. But let's start with the ARPA funds and open the discussion. And I think Carrie is going to help us get going.
So I'm looking at the information that our finance director, Sarah, provided, and they're sort of broken into two categories, I guess would be the best way to describe this, is existing eligible projects or expenditures, and then potential future eligible projects that are 2025 budget-based. And then as a reminder, we also had, and I'll bring this up, we did have this working list that was sort of a pared down compilation from brainstorming sessions among the town board members and department staff as well. So I'll sort of, shrink this in the view and it can be floating in a corner somewhere. Or maybe not.
Can I ask a couple clarifying questions? So we had a resolution for ARPA funds to be used for the community center paving. I think a few of us were confused because when that discussion was had with Eric, he said it was already accounted for, and Sarah did, as part of our discussion, say that the invoices were already paid. And so we wanted to, and I know she's not here, but
Yeah.
Jeff, if you know, so if it was already paid, where was it paid from?
I think the general fund, right?
I don't want to answer. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
I mean,
if I
it
can
wasn't
answer
in
and
the-
be accurate.
I know it wasn't technically in the budget, but that was the plan because they just had no idea of the amount. That's my recollection.
And Joe just left. Gosh darn it. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, for a project that size and for that scope, how was it completed without funds budgeted?
Again, not speaking.
I believe the board approved the project, but didn't allocate a specific amount of fund because we didn't know what that final number was. So I think the board said, yes, it wasn't an Eric or DPW chosen project. The board approved the project and then said, if and when it'll come in, we'll allocate funds from the general fund or something else towards it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we had this discussion already, but
my understanding.
I don't recall that.
Okay.
But it's okay. So I guess, so Sarah did confirm it. It's not like we're delinquent on the invoice. It's paid. Anybody on because, again, that resolution was before the board, any thought in wanting to use some of the ARPA funds to cover that project?
I wouldn't want to. I think that I would want to put more toward next year's budget.
Yeah, I don't, because I don't, though it would save us some money, I'm trying to keep to the intent of those ARPA funds. And the paving of a parking lot just doesn't hold to what I consider the spirit of that is, what did we learn? How can we make sure our infrastructure, any issues that might come up again if we were to ever face a similar situation for our residents. And yes, they go to the library, but it's paving. So that would be just my take.
No, I think that's fair. certainly have a lot of options to use this on. So
Yeah,
it's almost a shell game here in a sense. So, but I agree with your comment on that.
Okay, so then, so that item will stay as being funded from probably the unassigned general fund is what I'm guessing. And then we did whittle down in the spreadsheet, which I know Carrie was trying to pull up, of other ideas that we were looking at. But I did ask Sarah, because we are into budget season and trying to be mindful of fiscal spending and the impact on taxpayers, asked Sarah to look at currently earmarked projects for 2025, if any of them would be eligible for ARPA funding before the year end. So that's the second half of the project. So how does the board, do you want to try to look to close gaps in the budget, or do you want to keep going through this spreadsheet?
And when we say year-end, it's 2025 year-end, correct?
It has to be.
It's got to be allocated by the end of the year and spent by the end of next year.
It's not the end of 2025 spent by 2026?
It's going to be allocated by the end of this year,
All right.
so the board needs to have
We need to hop on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would use it to personally help with the budget. But we've talked about it, and we need to get to a conclusion, so I'll open it up to what people think.
So I know you said like lessons learned from COVID. I read ARPA for all of the different categories. I'm not disputing Linda and Kevin as those are one of the eligible criteria, but I think of infrastructure and maintenance of existing town functions. And so and I personally would like to close the gap for the budget because of what that means for taxpayers and the tax levy. So looking at the newly proposed items here, I would be in favor of the active transportation plan. To start?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yes.
Bob?
Yeah.
You're okay? So then we will allocate 100, Pete just went to the bathroom.
Do we want to explain? Well, and do we want to, can we get an explanation on that? So for if people are watching or
Maybe
watch the video?
Mark can highlight that. Maybe.
Yeah, so many other communities have looked at that. So an active transportation plan looks at more than just roads, so biking, walking, other opportunities connecting parks. So looking at all of our town, so this would be assisting in hiring a consultant to work with us, work with our boards to look at, how do we integrate that and then come up with a plan going forward to, implement, better biking, walking, hiking opportunities.
Yeah, and typically this is something that's led by a consultant that specializes in this type of planning effort. It is it's a lot of science and a little bit of art preparing these types of plans.
And there's the cost.
Yes, that's the cost.
Yeah, the cost is for consulting services.
And so if, I'm sorry, Sue, do you need a motion for us on this, or are you just reflecting in the notes, and then Mark, you'll prepare the formal resolution? So do you need anything from us?
I'm not sure. Is it, you're just going to go with the one item, or are you going to put them all together?
As we go through it, do we need to do it for each?
I think we would prepare a resolution. I think previous expenditures that have been solidified were memorialized as a resolution.
Right. And for the purposes of the record, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we allocate $100,000 for the active transportation plan using ARPA funds.
I'll second that.
Okay, we vote. Barry?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Ockenden?
Aye.
Teglash?
Aye.
Leenhouts?
Aye.
And what is the total amount again? It's 400.
So 559,000. Oh, wait, hold on a second. I'm sorry.
559,885.
Is that oh, I see. Yes, okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if the columns threw me off, or the tabulation of A through F. So 559,885 minus 100,000. So we've got 459 to go. I see from, and I'm sorry, guys, I'm toggling back and forth, so just chime in if there's anything. On the list that we had whittled down, security cameras was one of them, and I think, Kevin, you had brought justification for that as well.
Absolutely.
So I see now we have a budgeted line item of $57,000. Do you, as liaison to that team, do you know if that includes the cameras that were contemplated in the spreadsheet?
I do not.
Maybe?
Yeah, and is that, that 57,
So I think in the previous discussions about cameras, I think there were identified specific locations, and then there was like all of town
all our
facilities, and not every one of our properties is equipped to even support cameras because of lack of internet service and the like. So I don't know if the 57,000 is a specific site here at Town Hall or at the community center.
Yeah, it might be just to add on certain ones. That might be the number for buildings that already have the fiber optic / internet that could handle it right now, because running that kind of fiber optic to
would be
it would be way
far more than
limited.
that, right?
Yeah.
Do we
And I
know
think
which
that-
buildings offhand?
Right now, it's Town Hall. I think there's some at Community Center, and then our lodges do not have any.
Harris Whalen.
Harris Whalen does. Lower Harris Whalen is the only one lodge that has it.
Dolomite, no?
Dolomite, no.
So I'll make a proposal. I will, would the board be comfortable with allocating $57,000 of at least the budgeted items with throwing it out there, Kevin, I don't know if you can let us know, or if Tim, you can let us know of the additional cost of security cameras at the community center.
And can I interrupt you real quick? Because you're right, I was with you, but then I took notice that the security improvements on here also includes the door access. So now, do we know that it's the same locations that we're talking about? So that it's, okay, this location we've done, we can check it off.
As far as which buildings have door access right now, or
That if we're going to, so let's say we do the cameras with the fiber optic, that we've got the cameras at the community center, at the town, at Harris Whalen and Lower, that then we can also do door access? Or is the door access only talking about the community center and town hall?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
To be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I think we might need to.
That's a deep dive.
Yeah, we might need to get some more information.
Yeah.
Maybe we can earmark that for right now to go
Right.
towards that use, but we're going to need some more information as to what it actually
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that if it comes in to get what we need to do to complete the project at each site, and it comes in at 70 or 80,000, I would hate to have missed that opportunity. So that's okay. We can move forward. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can,
So what,
I was just
you
going to.
want to put a buffer on the 57, or are you comfortable with the 57 now? Or I guess even the 57, if we find out that door access was for something else, they can have the 57 and then allocate it towards security camera.
Yeah, I think as long as we leave it open for.
Okay.
Them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea.
We're going to allocate another 57,000 for security, including but not limited to cameras, security cameras at Town Hall, Community Center, and door access.
I was just going to add, I don't know if that's key fobs, but just a question. Do we have something planned for Shadow Pines, like camera-wise, for the new pickleball?
I know there is going to be access to that, but I don't know if as far as right now, if there's going to be.
We've run conduits for it.
Yes.
I mean, right now, we've added some security cameras over there temporarily, but we've run conduit for it, so it can be allocated in the future. But as part of the current construction, there's not cameras incorporated in this project.
And maybe it's a discussion for another time, but we need cameras there.
Yep.
And I don't know, Jeff, if you just want to make a community announcement that Shadow Pines, I think you're bringing that up because unfortunately there was some graffiti and vandalism at the new Shadow Pines Center where we've allocated a ton of money for residents to be able to enjoy the new facility, the playgrounds, everything. And that was just heartbreaking to hear. I don't know if you want to take a moment to highlight that.
It's a shame. And I was there. I got to remember what day that I stopped. 7:15 and talked to Genesee Construction. They're doing a great job. But yeah, it's heartbreaking. They're doing a beautiful job. There's graffiti. There's fencing going down. And right now, it's more critical than ever because of the paving they're doing, and I don't know all the details. Maybe Tim could talk.
So
but
yeah, right now
the matting was an issue, and
They have, they did pave half of the parking lot right now, and they got rained out on the striping of the pickleball courts, so they're going to continue that tomorrow. So the progress is going very well there. It's just these little hindrances that are coming up with graffiti and tagging and stuff.
And I don't know if the public knows this, but the town has a public safety force that goes around and monitors our town properties. And, they do a lot. They check the historic cemetery, all of the town properties, the schoolhouse, the historic schoolhouse, et cetera. But they can only do so much because there's limitations on, the budget and how much we can do. But, they do a great job, and it's just unfortunate that this occurred because this is the exact kind of thing that they're constantly trying to prevent.
That's a great point, and right. I mean, they can't be there all the time, and they can't be everywhere. Right. So Cameron's got to support them.
So maybe it's just something for you to discuss internally if we can get information out on the website or even social media so that folks can see the extent of damage. It's going to cost all of us money to clean that up, correct it, and if it continues to occur, that only hurts us, right, as Penfield. We love our community, and so I don't know if we can... Sorry for that slight deviation, but as we're talking about money.
And the one common sense way to be able to much better prevent things like this is to have cameras at our sites and have the head of security have the ability to monitor them remotely. That would make a huge difference.
Yeah, I guess my point for this discussion is we'll spend $57,000, no problem, and probably $100 based on Shadow Pines and other sites that need it. So. Thank you.
So are you asking to increase the 57 to 75, 100?
I think we could increase it to 100 and spend it wisely, no problem. And that would include the key fob access, which I believe that's what we're talking about, and door access too.
So I'm comfortable with that we can earmark it, but that would put a really short turnaround time for security and facilities to let us know, because again, we need the invoices or estimates to be able to sign it. So we can earmark 100, but if it falls below that, we need to know ASAP to allocate it somewhere else.
Well, and we'd have to, again, the way I understand it, we'd allocate it, commit it by the end of the year, but we could do the work next year in terms of spending it.
Yeah,
for
you can commit
ARPA.
the funds, and then the money gets expended between now and the 2026.
But there has to be like a plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
We gotta move.
It's what I'm saying. So,
Absolutely.
So tell us what the additionals are going to
Got
cost.
it.
Okay, so then hold on. I got to redo the math. So it's 200, 350, so 359, 885.
And you're talking community center, town hall, and then Shadow Pines.
Yes.
Well, I guess all parks, right?
All parks. To start.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah, see if we can get a cost per park.
Okay. Then looking again from the spreadsheet that we had whittled down, I'm seeing natural gas backup generators, sewer. And then I see on the budget list for 2025, sewer pump station renovations. I think that's the same thing.
Yeah, and that's a per pump station.
Per pump station.
So
Okay.
you can allocate multiple of, but that's a general number for adding backup generators to all of the pump stations in town. So any new pump station, we're making sure they come with a backup generator on them.
Okay.
So this is retrofitting older ones just so we have that redundancy come power outages.
And if memory serves me, I think 5 either have or will have backups, which means that 19 are remaining without.
Oh, okay.
And sorry, I don't want to keep going, but there's also I'm going to say it wrong, but the system of the pump stations where it'll grind the things that people put in the sewer. Wasn't that another request or ask?
That was another request.
because that's a big issue too, just saying. And just like the backup generators, there's certain that are more critical than others, the way I understand it. Is that?
Yeah, then the sewer department would have the list of which are the most critical, and then as you shared, the non-flushable wipes, as I'll call them, that people continue to use. Our sewer department is out at least once a day or several times a week taking pump stations apart to take all the rags and stuff out of them. So
It's a constant job for them.
Yeah.
So then just throwing out other ideas, again, going off the budget list, I don't see any overlap with what we whittled down, but, chime in.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw, we can spend exactly 30 seconds considering this because it's not there, and then we can nix it if everybody says so. But as we were looking at the budget, I saw in the budget for 2025 a traffic study. And the idea that with all these things that were going up, and we keep hearing from our residents about the traffic increases, is that something?
So
again, you can tell me, no, we already got it.
So we did perform and have just received their town-wide traffic study.
Okay.
So that'll be shared with the board shortly. That'll also be shared and discussed with the Transportation Committee at their September
And it's
agenda meeting.
town-wide.
It is. That's looking at intersections. It's not every intersection. So again, if you want to throw more money in it, we can look at more. But we looked at the accident rate of the top, I think we ended up looking at 26 intersections of town. So, we could look at more, but that'll be something we'll share with the board.
I see what you're saying.
shortly.
Right, town-wide, because we wouldn't need to go into resident neighborhoods or things like that.
We looked
small
at most
intersections.
of the intersections of county and state roads, and then we had completed the 250 corridor study was a separate study looking at improvements along 250, knowing, the development that's going forth with mixed use. That's kind of a separate piece unto itself.
Okay.
But when we were talking about the traffic study, there was something mapping out, while we're on the topic of sewer pump, right? It's a requirement now to map out sewer.
Correct.
Sewer, and what was the other one? Sewer along with the storm.
It's storm sewer specifically, so that falls under the DEC and the EPA regulations, so New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and part of that is in the next 5 years, there was a new permit that went out this year that regulates towns, county governments, that we've got to map, survey grade all of our storm sewers within the next 5 years. So that's the budget item we put in this year and talked about earlier. That's something we can allocate funds out of ARPA towards in meeting that requirement.
I'd be in favor of that.
And that's one of the items that we submitted a grant application for through New York State, and we won't know until end of year if we were successful in that grant-seeking effort.
And it won't be for all of it, correct?
That grant will not cover all of it. So you could cover 100, you could cover, whatever amount, and then that would just accelerate, maybe we get it done in 2 or 3 years instead of 5 years. I've kind of looked at budgeting, spreading it over the 5-year period to just soften the cost a little bit.
Thoughts?
Yep.
Okay, I would propose $100,000 to allocate towards that project. It's something we will be legally required to complete within the next 5 years. We know that the total cost is going to be approximately $300,000, with a portion of it hopefully qualifying for a grant. All you, Sarah.
I actually was not the one.
I'm just kidding.
Don't hers always get approved? I don't know. Maybe you should be.
Maybe you should submit.
What was the ask? What was the grant amount, Karen? That would be in it.
I gave it to Mark so he would have it, and now.
Put on the spot.
All right, so we're 300,000, and where do we stand, Candace?
So we asked for 67,000 this year.
Yeah, so it's not, the total, so 300,000 and 67, we'll still have to pull from the budget elsewhere. And then, Mark, you had provided 2 additional invoices. Are those related to?
So the quote I gave you there is for a new GPS unit for Survey Mapper for ourselves. So we do some of our own stuff. We just recently did stakeout for the Gloria Drive property, staking corners for DPW to work on.
Maybe not that.
Okay. Linda said we gave you too much money already, so. Okay, so then we are at, so $300,000 spent, we are at $259,885. So I can keep throwing things out unless somebody feels
I would say-
Did the AC fall off of this list?
Yeah.
AC, I think we were trying to consider for youth and seniors. That's for the second, or we can talk about it now.
Well, I just think that that one is for congregate programming, and I don't know if the AC unit would be a stretch, because what we're hoping to do with that money per the terms is to bring seniors together. I guess you could consider it that, but I don't.
You're saying it might fit better here.
That's my thought. That's why I was saying, how did we lose that?
Yeah.
Or is that even a priority?
You mean it might fit in the money we just got from the county?
Right, that was a nice even
Yeah.
number too, wasn't it? Like 100,000?
No, I think it was more than that.
Or was it?
Yeah. The additional 400.
Oh.
Check. I can check. Hold on.
I thought it was 150 or something, but.
And do we think that's a priority? If that's not a priority, something that we can,
I think we invite Andy up to the table because
Who? Oh.
we're not letting.
So I'm sorry, we got the additional 431,000 from the county. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
And Andy, can you speak to that? I know, I think Mr. Kreckman maybe had it in one of his lists. I'm assuming you guys have chatted about this along the way.
I wish I could speak to it. I can only speak to being at the community center, and it is something that our residents and people that attend talk about. AC, I just haven't been involved in. I believe the units were changed. I don't know if those were just library specific though, so I can't speak too much to the community center as a whole. But
well, I think the gymnasium
it was specific to the gym
was where he was looking for a new unit. Perhaps
that would be a number one thing as we hear the most complaints about the gym, especially coming off
they
the
have
summer.
plays in there. They have
That's why we kind of put it on the priority
Right.
list last time we talked about it.
I want to say it was 150,000
Yeah,
or something.
I feel like it was 150, but it's probably one of these budget sheets.
That might be something for the 431. I don't know if that plays into that. One thing I was just going to, I'd rather close the loop on the ARPA funds we're trying to allocate. So we've used the 300 of the, remind me, Candace?
Yes, 300,000. Yep.
I mean, out of the list for the budget items, I mean, I think they're all worthy. The furniture too, except I just want to understand a little bit more on that budget item. I'm not saying it shouldn't, we don't need furniture, but I don't know if there was, when we were going over the budget, I don't know if there was an estimate yet. I don't know if there's a specific estimate or not, so. But the tennis, I'll just finish. The tennis courts need to be resurfaced. I know lighting's an issue in the library children's room, which makes a lot of sense to me. The sewer pump renovations, and then the aging sewers. I'm in favor of all of them, depending on how they add up to what we need to use for ARPA. And then, go ahead, Candace.
So aging sewers, you mean the 140,000?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we move on, everybody okay then with the air conditioning? I think you said okay, Jeff?
Well, the air conditioning, I think, could be used under that 431,000. But yes, I guess it doesn't matter. It's one big pot of money.
Well, and the reason I said consider it now is I don't think it really belongs under that, because it came to us to focus on youth and senior congregate programming.
Yeah.
So I don't think of an air conditioner as fulfilling
I'm with you.
that. So that's why I said put it in this and use that.
I think it does, but
I think it could support better programming, because then the summer camps would be more comfortable in an AC room.
And
Our 8 weeks just ended, so.
Well, I stopped by actually last week to see how it was, and then couldn't stay very long because it was not comfortable.
Yeah, and if there were any events involving seniors, they would be more apt to be able to attend, because the heat could really bother them.
Could I just read from, I was going to just read an excerpt from the letter from the county.
Yeah, please.
And I can pull it up on the screen so we can all look at it together. Looking at this second sentence, it indicates additionally funding is available for the purchase of equipment and expand a town's ability to serve youth and seniors. Examples of related equipment could include, but not be limited to, vans or buses for senior transportation to municipal recreation centers, kitchen equipment for congregate meals, sports equipment, class supplies. So building improvements feels similar to kitchen equipment to me. So if you're expanding the capacity to house seniors and youth, you might be able to make a case for it in this funding stream.
Right.
Yeah.
We could see clarification.
And it's not saying, it just, I looked at it more as an opportunity to look at that ban that we talked about, some really different things, but it's all right.
Yeah, that's a good point, though.
Right.
Is that if we put the air conditioning here, then it would enable us to do more creative things with that.
With that.
Those funds.
Because our senior and our youth are, right, those are our big focus usually.
But then also we're trying to close, tighten things for the budget.
You'll still have money left over for a van, under the senior and youth. I mean,
And with this new 431,000, I don't know if we're going to be able tonight to figure it all out. Is that accurate? And it's kind of like the ARPA funds discussion. It's a little vague on what it can be, and people have feelings on what it should be used. But with that said, I'm all for the air conditioning. I think it makes sense.
okay, so maybe we table the air conditioning. Can we agree to set aside $150,000 for the air conditioning? Was that the number that was coming out?
Can we, sorry.
Carrie, do you have that Excel sheet that?
Yes, I'm going to
one of the
find
original
that.
ones, I think, had it on there with a dollar amount. Not to put you on the spot and
No,
search
that's
for
fine.
it,
I'm
but-
happy
And
to
if needed,
do a quick
we can-
search.
We'll talk to facilities, Andy, you and I, and Tim.
I think it was on.
So whether it comes from the county funds or the ARPA funds, it sounds like we at least agree that it would be a good item to fund.
It's absolutely a good item to fund. I'm just torn about where to put it.
So that's why I think we can hold, at least table, $150,000. But everybody comfortable with that? Okay. And then I think, Jeff, I heard you say the aging sewer mains.
Yeah, I think everything on this list makes sense, and we can go down each one. I think the tennis courts need to be resurfaced,
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say mathematically, if we did 80,000 for the sewer pump station and 28,000 for the new lighting, wouldn't that just about come out to zero it out?
So the 80,000, we'd have to have sewer pick just one, right?
Yeah,
That was
unfortunately.
yeah, so I don't know, unless there's one that desperately needed it, it doesn't make as much sense to only replace one and then have the other 18 be vulnerable. So I would lean more towards the 140,000 for fiberglass lining of aging sewer mains. That sounds like it's more of a broader reach for that dollar investment.
So we have 259,000 left, and then we're putting 150 aside for the air conditioning, potentially?
That was the placeholder number in the original list that was reviewed by the town board, 150,000 for the AC unit.
If we do that, that leaves us 109, correct?
Yeah, and sewer lining, you can spend, I think 140 was put in. I mean, we could spend millions on sewer lining, so if 109 is the number, 109 is the number. So if that's what's left, then you can allocate that specific amount, and then that's what can be done.
Are there areas identified that you guys know need it sooner rather than later?
The sewer department's been out.
Yeah, sewer department's been doing a great job of working through. They cameraed over there by Crossbow. They did that. They realized that there wasn't that much, it didn't need it, so then they switched to Creek Street. So yeah, there are areas that still need it.
Okay.
Right in front of Alex's house. Just saying. Sorry. That's not for the record. Okay.
Or, Kevin, we can do the resurfacing of the courts, because that would still be lower than the remainder.
And that one I remember saying was, we're taking it out of the budget, right? Because that was in the plan. I remember that conversation too, because we were going over different things. We were talking about the community center parking lot, resurfacing it, and then we talked about the tennis courts needing it.
Oh, you took it out, okay.
So yeah, what are your thoughts? That isn't, right, in the budget? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Which item is that?
The tennis courts. Veterans Park tennis courts.
There's also the 20,000 for Penfield Ecumenical Food Shelf, connecting that to sanitary sewer.
Yeah. Can you speak to that, Tim, at all? Has that been?
The tennis courts?
No, the food shelf sewer connection that's been asked for. Is that a chronic issue? Are you aware of any?
No, not chronic. The only thing that happened was it was overflowing. We had to cut down that tree in the backyard because it was planted over top of the septic system there. So obviously that would be an easy run going from that food shelf to Jackson Road.
Is that our only septic property at the moment? Or?
No, because the bathrooms over by the tennis courts, that is also septic. But they do use that a lot for discarding of like spilt. Like it was a lot of milk and all that stuff that was poured into the toilets for that, so.
We need something.
I mean, I would resurface.
Looking to spend 109. I think we're down to 109.
I said I would resurface tennis courts, and the new lighting's important, and we're real close.
Yep, then we're down to like less than $7,000.
Okay.
Do we add it to something?
Another 5,000 for the tennis courts.
You mean the 9,000? We can add that to the MS4 mapping or the transportation plan or security.
Sure.
I mean, at that point, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Whatever Mark wants.
I don't think.
Okay.
To the security cameras, you could throw it in there. We
Yeah.
know we're going to
Yeah.
be short on that
Right.
to do it properly.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we don't have anything on there for 9.
We don't have pricing yet, and so we could be coming back to say, that this is what we can get for the 100,000, and then you can allocate additional funds if you wanted to.
Okay, so if I can just summarize what I think I heard. So we're doing the tennis courts and the new lighting? Is that what we said?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Bob?
And the remainder.
That's what I heard, yeah.
Okay, and then any remainder,
Security cameras.
okay, we can throw the 9,000 at security cameras.
Perfect.
And then if we come back with any, whatever, if the invoices or whatever come back with any extra funds at the end of the year, can we just, so that staff, in case time runs out, can we direct that staff can apply that towards the MS4 mapping and or the active transportation plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good with
Okay.
that.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
that frees you up just in case,
The mapping's an easy add. I
Right,
mean, That's
right.
just,
And
we've
ongoing.
got surveyors already on contract. I'll just send them on another street. So that's an easy one for
Okay.
us to keep
Just in
keep
case
moving
this is
on.
like Thanksgiving, you can't get the board
No, I think
in
that's
time.
smart.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that one's an easy.
Then Jeff, I think everything is earmarked for ARPA, and then maybe we can take the county funds at additional night, because I think, Andy, you're going to be working with Sarah to submit additional documentation to justify the asks for specific youth senior programming or in compliance with the county criteria.
Yeah, I can work with Sarah about programming for the budget, but I know that there was some other items that we put up there for possibilities for that stuff, and I'm sure the library and other places are looking.
Oh, yes,
to have some
yes,
things,
yes.
but Yeah, I can work
You
with her
as
about that stuff.
one person to work with, I'm sure. We haven't yet met with the library for budget asks, so we'll go through their needs as well.
Yeah,
Right?
and I'll be involved with that too, Andy, because you're the one person I haven't connected with.
Okay.
So
I don't take it personally.
Yeah.
I don't remember enough with Sarah. It was Carrie that did the grant for, which one? For the MS4 mapping. If we receive that, does that euchre in any way with?
No, we have to continue on with other areas, so
bigger,
it just, it helps provide, I'm sorry, I'm speaking over Mark, it helps provide funding toward that effort, so it means that we're having to spend $60,000 or $67,000 less of our own money.
Go for it.
But we still have to continue on with the rest of the town.
Got it.
And just Tim and I were going to be gathering up some information with, there's a New York State contract in place for vehicle purchases, so we were going to get some information about van pricing for the town boards.
Great. And with that, then, do you think we should shoot for our next work session to have a list of priority items for this next set? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
But hooray, guys, we've
We spent a lot of money.
Okay, now
I think we got a lot done. I think there's some good things.
we got 10 minutes for EPOD and 10 minutes for tree law. We're out of here by 9.
I have a question. So is the vote or agreement to spend for the active transportation cover all of this?
So it's going to be a resolution memorializing what was just
I'm
discussed.
going to work on putting that resolution together.
For just the transportation?
No, for all that dollar amount.
The balance of the ARPA funding.
And if it comes back that it's all of a sudden all on the map?
Yes, I'll be watching, Mark, to make sure. We have a proofreading system, he and I, so we'll make sure it's not magically all landing in one pot.
And we'll get it to you, Sue, to help with the minutes. And yeah. Okay.
So wanted just to add to the agenda for tonight, we did have the public hearing for the proposed change to EPOD regulations. No one spoke at that public hearing. We haven't received public comments, written public comments, but the EECC is still reviewing, actually, Linda, the comments and questions that you had raised and asked them to look at. That conversation is going to continue at its September meeting.
Okay.
So we wanted to bring that up so that if any other town board members have comments, questions related to those regulation amendments, if you could provide that now to Sarah, and me as well, but to Sarah specifically, so that the EECC can address them as they can to close up, because the idea would be that conversation will continue at the September EECC meeting. This is the first time I've said that acronym correctly. I'd just like to point that out for the record. But they'll sort of close out their review of comments and final questions, and then we would be bringing back to this town board a revised version of that local law for consideration at a future legislative meeting. So just wanted to make sure you guys were all aware. If you have comments, questions, things you're not sure of, please make sure you get them to us so we can have EECC look at them.
And just so everybody knows, the two key areas or categories that my questions addressed, one of them is a concern because, as I said, I am getting calls, I'm running into people about the development. I just want to make sure it doesn't come back to haunt us, that we've made a change in the EPOD regulations where we've made something smaller, changed it, and now developers can develop something. I want to make sure if anything's in that new document that we've addressed it. I don't think there is, but that was one of my concerns. And the other one was just to think if we're going to go in and change it, I was thinking past the next few years. I was thinking 5, 10 years about climate change, and have we addressed that? Do we have baseline? So those were my thoughts. I don't think there were anything too severe, so I'm hoping I didn't send you all
Right. I think just as
raging.
a point, I think the need for the change in the code has been longstanding. It's been an identified issue in the past, and Pete can speak to it better than I can, but there is really a risk of the town be exposed to
which we don't want.
Yes, Article 78, and other towns have actually experienced being on the receiving end of that.
Or even like a takings claim.
Takings, yeah, absolutely. So we just wanted to be cautious of that. But if you have any other comments, Kevin gets to be the liaison to that committee, so he gets to.
They haven't, so I appreciate
That was your concern with the committee, right? To clarify so that it wouldn't be a takings and, right?
Right, that was the original purpose stated for changing this law, was so that it would protect us from that risk.
Right.
As well as to clarify so it's easy, so it's easier to read for residents.
Yeah.
For staff to apply.
And staff to apply.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Last item, I think.
You want to intro this?
Go for it.
Okay. The last item is the public tree local law. This is a follow-up item from a previous meeting. The EECC has submitted a letter of recommendation to the town board, including the responses to the comments provided previously by Councilperson Teglash. So the summary of that recommendation
I read it.
was to move forward with the public tree law as written. There has previously been a public hearing on that, and there were two sets of comments at that time, which were previously addressed by EECC. So that's what was brought forth.
Can I just point out one thing from the letter that I think is significant? Part of it says, to ensure that the town forestry plan is adopted in a timely manner, please consider including a time frame for the next steps toward the creation of a town forestry plan as part of a resolution for adoption of the public tree law. I thought that was an important point that they made.
The only thing with that one was I didn't know if that legally can be included in a resolution, a time frame, but that was a recommendation from the committee because they want to ensure that the forestry plan is moved forward with in a reasonable time frame.
Right, and a lot of those questions I put forth were, is this going to be in the forestry plan? Is this going to be in the forestry plan? Because I think there's a lot there, so I think that is, Kevin, I agree, that was a good point.
Initially, I don't think it's a problem to include that in the resolution as a separate, or we could, it might be better to do two separate resolutions, actually. One adopting the law and one, I don't know, I'd have to think about that. Maybe when we're ready to draft that and take a look at it, we'll talk about it, how we incorporate that in.
The town law, though, presumes that a forestry plan is in place.
It does.
So,
but it's not in place.
Well,
No,
that
it'll
it
follow.
becomes in place.
Yes.
As it's written right now, it does not state that it's in place.
Okay.
But it presents it as something that is coming.
So it doesn't need, so that's not something that's in the law, but it would be in the resolution. And so Carrie and I can talk about how we draft that.
Yeah, cool.
because my thinking was if the forestry plan is not in place, the town would never be able to effectuate or carry through with the law. So I'm not opposed to putting a time frame, but if the town were to be delinquent with the forestry plan and not put one into place for a year, we could never execute the law on someone because we have no criteria to apply on a resident. So I kind of see it as like a non sequitur, really. But again, whatever. However the resolution is.
Yeah, we'll work on that. I understand what you're saying about that.
So it looks like you're going to be bringing a motion to adopt?
This would be preparing a resolution to adopt the local law.
All right, I make a motion that we prepare a resolution to adopt the local law.
I'll second that.
Okay, vote please, Sue.
Barry?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Leenhouts?
Aye.
Ockenden?
Aye.
Teglash?
Aye.
All aye.
Okay, I don't think any old business, new business, anything I'm missing? All right, well, we'll adjourn at exactly 8:43. We got under the 9 o'clock mark. Appreciate everybody, and have a good night.